Chapter 41:12. After saying that, he walked out. After a while, Su Mo heard the sound of cooking coming from the kitchen. Kong Xiao was a good cook. It was probably a habit he had cultivated in the past. The taste was also very good. She thought that there was probably no one else besides his mother who could enjoy such meticulous service from him. In fact, she should be moved, but she just felt that something was missing. Su Mo got out of bed. She originally wanted to take a shower, but after thinking about it, she didn't. Instead, she went to the kitchen. Kong Xiao was cooking. She went over and asked, "What did you make?" "Poison," he said a little unhappily. Then, he looked at her and said, "Do you dare to eat it?" Su Mo reached out and hugged his waist. This was a very intimate action. From the past until now, she almost rarely kissed him like this. Kong Xiao was a little stunned for a moment. Then his heart palpitated. He liked Wen Yuan for a long time. Of course, it was an extravagant hope, but Wen Yuan's heart belonged to someone else. When he became famous, he already knew that she had Yi Mu Bai in her heart. As for other women, he just indulged in the game of flesh and money. He never thought of letting them have any tenderness and consideration for him. This kind of hug was unnecessary for Kong Xiao. But at this time, when Su Mo hugged him like this, he actually felt very comfortable. It was an indescribable feeling. So, his heart softened and his voice softened a little. "Go get a fruit to fill your stomach. Don't starve, or your stomach will hurt again. Do you feel bad?" Su Mo hugged him. Her voice was decadent. She wanted to act coquettishly and please him. Kong Xiao tilted his head and looked at her. "Do you want me to peel it for you?" She smiled and let go of his body. But she didn't know that he just had a thrilling experience. Kong Xiao watched her obediently sit at the small dining table and eat an orange. Then, he continued to cook. He guessed that she was hungry, so he made 2 simple dishes and a soup. The taste was very good. Originally, Su Mo had eaten enough of an orange, but she couldn't help but eat more when she smelled it. In the end, her stomach was a little bloated. Kong Xiao put down his chopsticks and asked worriedly, "What's wrong?" Su Mo bit her lip and said in a low voice, "I seem to be feeling uncomfortable. You eat, I'll go lie down for a while." Happy to let her go. He immediately went over and gently picked her up, heading towards the bedroom. He put her down and said in a low voice, "Did you eat too much, or did I make you uncomfortable?" Su Mo blushed and turned her head away. "I ate a little too much." His gaze was deep as he leaned against the bed and placed her in his arms. His voice was a little low. "Eat less next time. Eat when you're hungry." Her stomach wasn't the same as usual. She couldn't eat too much, so it was a little troublesome to feed her. He wanted to bring her to his villa and get 1 or 2 chefs to take care of her stomach. When he was not in B City, he would always worry about her meals and her work. Privately, Kong Xiao felt that Su Mo's health was no longer suitable for her to manage the home of love all day long. She often went to get sponsors, so she had to socialize and so on. Just thinking about it made his heart ache. It was just that he couldn't say too much now. He was still on probation here. Su Mo leaned against his chest and said softly, "I'm fine." As he spoke, his expression became slightly pained. Kong Xiao immediately tensed up. "What's wrong?" End of chapter. Chapter 41:13. Su Mo let out a sigh of relief. "I'll be fine after a rest. Don't go crazy again." Kong Xiao hugged her and covered half of her body with a thin quilt. He carefully rubbed her abdomen to relieve the swelling pain. The night breeze caressed Su Mo's face, and he actually felt a little comfortable being hugged and rubbed by him like this. Another special feeling was born in his heart. Her breath was a little humming and her voice was hoarse. That's it. Kong Xiao didn't move and let her rest in his arms. After a long time, he asked her softly, "Are you feeling better?" She answered vaguely and then hugged his neck again. "Don't move. Hold me." His heart softened for a moment. He didn't have any other romantic thoughts and just hugged her wholeheartedly. Kong Xiao had never thought that one day he would be able to treat a girl with sincerity other than Wen Yuan. But now, he really cared about her and felt sorry for her. Even if it was a problem, even if it was a fool, he seemed to accept it. Later, he coaxed her to sleep. He knew that she wasn't well. Today was always because of his impulsiveness. Thinking that her body was better, He didn't care about it anymore. Now, he felt a little regretful. She slept soundly, but he didn't feel sleepy at all. He stared at her face for a long time. Tonight, he actually had some things to arrange with her, but he couldn't bear to wake her up after such a scene. He looked at her in the middle of the night and made sure that she was fine before falling asleep. The next morning, when Suemo woke up, Kong Xiao was already up and coming out of the bathroom. She didn't have a changing room here, and he was a very particular person, so he went to the bathroom to change. She opened her eyes and saw him coming over. He was wearing a very formal suit, as if he was going to do some work. Suemo leaned her head on the pillow and asked softly, "Where are you going today?" She thought that he was just going to participate in a show and wouldn't go out, but Kong Xiao said, "I'm going to France for 2 days to attend an award ceremony. I wanted to reject it, but I really can't." She knew that he couldn't reject it because he probably won an award, so she smiled. "That's good." He also smiled. "You're happy too, aren't you?" She grunted. Kong Xiao's fingers gently stroked her face. "I wanted to take you with me, but I was afraid that you would be too tired." Suemo shook his head. She didn't say the words of rejection out loud. In fact, she felt that their relationship was just that of a man and a woman living together. They couldn't even be considered close boyfriend and girlfriend. They just felt that they were not suitable for each other and could leave at any time. Kong Xiao stared at her eyes. She probably realized what she was thinking. Her eyes darkened. She sighed softly and changed the topic. "Stay at my place for the next 2 days. There's an auntie there to cook." "I really don't feel at ease if you're alone." Suemo objected. "I can take care of myself." He stared at her and said very slowly, "I've also told my mother. She's even more worried. Why don't you let her come over and take care of you for 2 days?" How could Suemo bear this responsibility? She glared at him. "Kong Xiao, don't make it so that I have no freedom at all. My body is much better now. If I really don't want to do it, I can order takeout." Just as she finished speaking, he caught hold of her weakness. "Can you still eat takeout with a stomach like yours?" She stopped talking and turned her face to the side. Chapter 41:14. For a long time, both of them were silent. His breathing became heavier. After a long time, Suemo turned back and stared at him. "Don't be like this. You will make me feel like a child who can't be handled. I'm in my early 30s. Kong Xiao exhaled. "You still know that you're in your early 30s. If you could take care of yourself, would you torture your stomach like this?" Suemo didn't know what to say. Kong Xiao continued, "Go to my place, or my mom will come over to take care of you." She didn't want to be so close to him, so she blurted out, "What right do you have to control me like this?" Kong Xiao's happy expression changed a little. He stared at her. "Am I nothing to you? Am I meaningless?" Suemo bit her lips. "I just don't want you to control me too much. If you say that you care about me, I have nothing to say." Kong Xiao's temper wasn't very good. He always made do with staying at her place. Last night, he stayed by her side for half the night, and now she was being so unreasonable. His voice was slightly cold. "Suemo, I like you, but don't think that I won't get angry." Saying that, he got up and left angrily. Suemo didn't care about him. When he walked to the door, he paused for a moment, probably waiting for her to say something, but Suemo didn't say anything. In the end, he didn't say anything and went out with a 20-inch suitcase. This Cold War came inexplicably. Kong Xiao was very angry, but Suemo wouldn't be this angry. She didn't think it was a big deal, but he was wrong to think that he could control her completely by taking care of her. However, after angering Kong Xiao, she took good care of her stomach. She cooked on time and didn't go to Home of Love. The next day, Teacher Kong came again. Suemo didn't know that Kong Xiao told her to come, but she didn't have the face to ask. Teacher Kong told her about Kong Xiao's situation abroad and said that she wanted to buy a gift for her. She asked Suemo what she wanted. Suemo was stunned for a moment and then smiled. "There's nothing I like in particular. I'm resting at home now, so I don't need anything." Teacher Kong also smiled. She knew that the two of them had a quarrel, but she couldn't do anything about it. She could only follow her son's wishes and take care of him. Teacher Kong left in the afternoon. After eating a good meal, Suemo lay on the sofa, feeling a little upset. She gently placed her hand on her stomach and gently rubbed it. Remembering that Kan Xiao had done the same for her that night, her heart softened. It seemed that when he left, she was quite cold. Suemo let out a long sigh. She felt that she was wrong, but then she felt that she was right. Why did she care so much about him? They were just friends. If she didn't like him, she could just leave. However, Sumo's heart was still a little stuffy, and he wanted to go out for a walk. But as he walked, he bumped into an acquaintance. It was her ex-boyfriend, Lin Minxin. When Suemo put on a set of sportswear and walked out, he accidentally saw Lin Minxin and Ruanyin together in a coffee shop. His appearance had changed, and Suemo could tell at a glance that he had undergone plastic surgery. He had an overly tall mountain root, an elongated chin, and a cut at the corner of his eyes. He did look better after plastic surgery. He could be considered a handsome man, but compared to his natural appearance, he still lacked some of the essence. Suemo stood outside the coffee shop and looked at him quietly for a while. Then, she decided to leave. She didn't expect that the newbie that Ruanyin promoted was her ex-boyfriend. The world was really small. Chapter 41:15. Just as Suemo was about to leave, Lin Minxin saw her and stared at her. Ruanyin frowned. "Do you know Suemo?" Lin Minxin smiled bitterly. "Yes." Then he put down the coffee in his hand. "I'll go say hello." He got up quickly and ran towards the door. Seeing his expression, Ruanyin was sure that it wasn't as simple as just knowing him. They must have had an intimate relationship in the past. Ruanyin wasn't in a hurry. She just sat there and waited quietly. Outside, Lin Minxin ran very quickly and caught up with Suemo. He called her name. Suemo. Suemo turned her head and looked at him quietly. She was surprised but also expected. At that time, her family was in trouble, and he left very decisively. He just said that he couldn't afford it. At that time, their relationship was at its best. That day, Suemo sat from night to day. She always thought that he was joking with her, and that he would come back soon to tell her that he regretted it or whether it was true and that he wanted to get through it with her. However, she waited from night to day, but the person she thought she would spend the rest of her life with didn't come. Time waited for no one, and neither did her family in the hospital. She could only wipe away her tears. She worked hard as an assistant to Yimu Bai. Her salary was earned with her blood and sweat. At that time, she told herself that she couldn't trust any man, especially when it came to money. Now, the man appeared in front of her again, looking at her with longing and nostalgia. Suemo felt that it was ridiculous and ridiculous. She looked at the man in front of her quietly and said in a low voice, "Long time no see." Compared to her indifference, Lin Minxin was undoubtedly much more enthusiastic. Although the Suemo in front of him was somewhat haggard and was no longer as young as before, there was still an indescribable beauty between her brows. She was no longer as young and inexperienced as before. He knew that she was with Kang Xiao, but he didn't think that they would last long. Kang Xiao was very popular, and Suemo might just be an appetizer for him. They would break up when they got tired of each other. They were not as pure as they were when they were young lovers. Moreover, he also knew that Suemo had a good relationship with Stars Entertainment. Although KG Entertainment wasn't worse than Stars Entertainment, there were too many mature artists in KG Entertainment, and he wasn't young anymore. He wanted Suemo to go to Stars Entertainment, and then they could get married. Besides, the home of love in her hands raised a lot of money in a year, comparable to the income of a celebrity. With such conditions, Lin Minxin naturally didn't care that she had a relationship with Kang Xiao. This was the way of the entertainment industry. If one couldn't even let go of such a small thing, how could one become famous? The man surnamed Lin's thoughts moved again and again. Then, he revealed a trace of nostalgia. "I heard that you were sick a while ago. I wanted to visit you, but I was afraid that you wouldn't welcome me." Suemo immediately said, "I really don't welcome you." "You're right. Lin Minxin, if you have nothing else to do, just pretend that you didn't see me when you see me on the road. We don't have anything to do with each other. I don't want to implicate you." After saying that, she turned around and left. She didn't miss this person, only a little bit of hatred. He wasn't disappointed. This guy didn't deserve to be called disappointed. He was scum. Lin Minxin was still standing behind her. He said softly, "I've been regretting it all these years, and I miss you very much. Suemo paused for a moment before turning around and saying mockingly, your acting skills are not bad. You'll be popular in the future. End of chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 41:16. Suemo was speechless. The man who had left first said that he missed her. What did he miss? He didn't want her in the past, but he missed her now. She was afraid that it wasn't her that he missed, but something else. Suemo turned around and smiled. It's been so many years. There's no need for that, really. Lin Minxin was still looking at her quietly, as if he was reminiscing. Suemo wasn't a little girl anymore, so she wouldn't do anything to him. She just smiled and wanted to leave, but Lin Minxin grabbed her wrist. Suemo, wait. She shook him off without thinking and said coldly, we have nothing to talk about. Lin Minxin. The past is the past, and I don't think you're forgetful. His expression was a bit ugly, but he still didn't want to give up. Are you not willing to give me another chance? This time, Suemo didn't answer him. She just shook her head and walked forward. They were already on their own, so there was nothing else to talk about. Suemo left, but Lin Minxin was still standing behind her. He called her name again. Suemo. Not only did she ignore him, but she also walked faster and faster. Lin Minxin didn't know that when he and Suemo were entangled, Ruan Yin had filmed the scene and sent it to several VIPs. So, 2 hours later, Suemo and Lin Minxin were trending, and they even bought the top 3 places. The title was related to Kong Xiao, saying that Kong Xiao's girlfriend had an affair with her ex Ruan Yin was really a ruthless person. She had broken up with Kong Xiao, but she still wanted to eat some blood. When Lin Minxin returned to the cafe, Ruan Yin said, if a reporter interviews you, remember not to mention your past with Suemo. Just say that you can't forget her, but you just didn't expect her to be with Kong Xiao. Lin Minxin was a bit confused. Ruan Yin drank a cup of coffee and smiled. It's just a normal publicity technique. If you want to wait until you have a new work, I don't know when it will be. Lin Minxin was in his early 30s, so he wasn't young, but he had done a good job. She also lied about his age, so he was 26 now. Anyway, who knew? Lin Minxin was a little uneasy, but he always listened to Ruan Yin. Ruan Yin was a top-notch agent who had helped Kong Xiao develop. Of course, when he was alone, he wanted to return the favor. Wasn't Ruan Yin single? There must be a woman's needs, right? But she rejected him, saying that she didn't want to mess around with artists. However, Lin Minxin knew that she had slept with Kong Xiao in the past. Everyone in the industry knew about it. Lin Minxin thought that Ruan Yin probably wanted to take revenge on Kong Xiao. It was said that women's love turned to hate, and he thought it made sense. 2 hours later, Sumo's name appeared on the hot search list. Because he was also an artist of KG Entertainment, Chinemo was a little angry. Wasn't he slapping himself in the face? And he was the clearest about who had done it. Chinemo called Ruan Yin into his office, and his expression didn't look too good. His secretary quickly left, knowing that President Qin was going to lose his temper. Chinemo looked at Ruan Yin with a hint of anger on his face, but he didn't hide it. I don't care about what happened between you and Kong Xiao, but you're in the wrong for buying the hot search list to insinuate Kong Xiao. Ruan Yin doesn't use publicity like you do. Even 100 Lin Minxins can't compare to Kong Xiao. Do you understand? End of chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 41:17. Ruan Yin wasn't convinced. I can make him as popular as Kong Xiao. Do you think he can become popular just by looking at his face? Even if he becomes popular, do you think his reputation and status in the industry will be comparable to Kong Xiao's? King Entertainment creates superstars, not little fresh meat. Besides, Lin Minxin is almost a veteran. Qin Mo reprimanded bluntly. Ruan Yin still wanted to say something, but Qin Mo waved his hand in the air. I don't care if you're upset or not. I just want to tell you that Kong Xiao is someone I want to protect. Don't compare him to an insignificant person. Qin Mo was the boss of King Entertainment, and he had a strong personality. Ruan Yin didn't dare to go against him. She hardened her voice and said, I'll remove the trending topic. There's no need. Let's go. Qin Mo said calmly. Tell Lin Minxin to be careful with his words. Otherwise, Don't blame me for being ruthless when he's frozen. Ruan Yin had witnessed Qin Mo's temper today. He didn't give her any face at all. When she was about to leave, she saw a slender girl about 160 centimeters enter. She was wearing a simple pair of black jeans and a white t-shirt. She had a bag on her back. She couldn't tell her age, but she looked mature and petite. She looked like she was in her early 20s. He-Huan didn't look at Ruan Yun when she entered. Instead, she spoke to Qin Mo. I'm going to pick up He-Huan. With that, Ruan Yun knew that she was He-Huan, Qin Mo's wife. He-Huan was an international director, but she rarely appeared in public and kept a low profile. That was why she hadn't recognized her. Ruan Yun paused and deliberately slowed down. She heard President Qin say calmly, I'm free now. Let's go together. With that, he picked up his coat and car keys and left with He-Huan. They closed the door. Seeing that Ruan Yun didn't leave, Qin Mo paused. Ruan Yun, go back and think about what I just said. Ruan Yun nodded and watched them leave. She returned to her office and gritted her teeth. She had never thought that Qin Mo would fancy Kong Xiao so much. Logically speaking, Kong Xiao's status had already reached a certain height, and it was unlikely for him to climb any higher. Right now, King Entertainment should be replenishing its resources. Only fresh blood could compete with young, fresh meat like Bai Jingxian of Stars Entertainment. Lin Minxin was indeed not as good-looking as Bai Jingxian, but he was unscrupulous and desperately wanted to climb up the ranks. This was very similar to Kong Xiao in the past. This was also the reason why Ruan Yun had chosen him. She asked her assistant, why is Director He here today? He wanted been back for some time. She had her own studio and wouldn't come to King Entertainment so easily. She thought that something must have happened. She hadn't been there just now, so maybe Lin Minxin had missed an opportunity. Being in He-Huan's movie, even if it was just a supporting role, was a big deal. The junior assistant was about to bring up this matter, so she lowered her voice and said, Sister Ruan, Director He is here today to pick actors for a new show. I heard that he picked a young male idol and 2 older actresses. Their acting skills are excellent, but it's not decided yet. A young, fresh meat as the male lead? Ruan Yun didn't believe it. This wasn't He-Huan's doing. The junior assistant laughed. How could that be? The male lead was already decided. Kong Xiao, the big brother of King Entertainment. Chapter 41:18. Then, she suddenly stopped talking and looked at Ruan Yun, not daring to say anything else. After all, Ruan Yun used to be Kong Xiao's manager, and she had earned a lot of commission. Now, she was miserable. This was the reality of the entertainment industry. A capable artist was God. Now that Kong Xiao was favored by Director He, his career would only become more prosperous. She was afraid of offending Ruan Yun, but Ruan Yun murmured, so that's how it is. No wonder President Qin valued Kong Xiao so much. He was He-Huan's favorite. Most people in the company didn't know about the conflict between President Qin and He-Huan, but Ruan Yun knew a little. President Qin loved He-Huan very much, but she didn't know if He-Huan felt the same way. Seeing that she wasn't angry, the junior assistant leaned over and whispered, they're mainly here for Kong Xiao. The others are like a pack, but it's up to Director He to decide whether to use them or not. Most importantly, Kong Xiao said that we'll use whoever he feels comfortable with. Then, she fixed her eyes on Ruan Yun, waiting for her to speak. Ruan Yun looked at her. Who was the fresh meat? He wasn't even in the top 18. The assistant was a little annoyed. She thought for a moment and said, but he's young. He can play the young Kong Xiao. Just from this, Ruan Yun knew that Lin Minxin couldn't do it. He was already in his 30s, so how could he act like a young man? She thought about it and said, do you know who wrote the script? The assistant shook her head. I don't know either. Ruan Yun knew that she couldn't get anything out of her, so she didn't force her. She turned on the computer and wanted to check the internet. At this moment, her phone rang. Her brows loosened. She knew who was calling, and in that instant, it felt like a lifetime had passed. It was Kong Xiao. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the phone to her ear. Kong Xiao. Kong Xiao's voice was cold. Ruan Yun, you can deal with me if you're unhappy, but don't do anything to Suemo otherwise. I can't guarantee that I won't kill your new artist and make it impossible for you to stay in KG Entertainment. Kong Xiao wasn't trying to scare her, and she knew that he was capable of doing so. Didn't President Qin make it clear just now? Wanyan wasn't someone to be trifled with. Her voice was indifferent as she replied, I don't understand what you mean. Don't tell me you didn't buy the trending topic. I've worked with you for so many years, and I know your trick's the best. I'll give you half an hour to deal with it. Or, I'll make sure Lin Minxin can't take care of himself, Kong Xiao said coldly. Wanyan was flustered and exasperated. Have you really fallen in love with Su Mo? What's so good about her that she's worth you giving up everything? I'm still me, and I haven't given up on everything. I'm just living in a different way, looking for someone I love. Kong Xiao's voice was still very cold. You should know that my contract with KG Entertainment will expire in half a year. If I renew the contract and make some requests, do you think President Qin will agree? Wanyan slowly put down the phone. Qin Mo would agree. She had no more value, she knew. Wanyan chuckled softly. She had given up so many years of her youth, but in the end, she had lost to a Su Mo Concho. He should be dazzling. Why is he willing to be ordinary now? Wanyan chuckled softly. Her smile was a little desolate. She had worked so hard for so long, but she couldn't even compare to him once. If it was Wen Yuan, it would have been fine, but Su Mo, she really couldn't accept it. Wanyan dialed the number and removed the trending topic. But even so, the wave of news just now was enough for Lin Minxin to be in the limelight. Even after removing the trending topic, there were new posts about Lin Minxin being Kong Xiao's girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. Anyway, the momentum couldn't be suppressed anymore. Wanyan didn't know what to do at that moment. In the afternoon and evening, the three of them were on Weibo. The reason was that someone had posted a photo of Su Mo and Lin Minxin kissing in the past. It was actually very innocent, but the title of the photo was very weird. It was called a bed photo, and Weibo almost collapsed. On the other side, Kong Xiao also noticed it. He clenched his fists. He wanted to call Su Mo, but he was hesitant. They were still in a Cold War. If he called her now, it would seem a little weak. Moreover, she was the one who was tugging at her ex-boyfriend. She was infected with the flu and had a terrible headache. She recovered. End of chapters. Chapter 4119. Kong Xiao didn't call Su Mo. Instead, he kept silent. Since he didn't say anything, Lin Minxin didn't dare to say anything due to the pressure from Qin Mo. After a few days, the heat was finally replaced by the news of a young actress having an affair. Kong Xiao hadn't contacted Su Mo for a few days. Su Mo also thought that they were over. After all, with Kong Xiao's position, he really didn't need to care about her. Su Mo went to work in the home of love. When she saw Ms. Kong, she couldn't help feeling a little uncomfortable. However, Ms. Kong was calm, as if she didn't know that the two of them had a conflict. She still brought her snacks and said a few words of concern. Of course, Su Mo wouldn't show anything in front of the elders, so she just said a few words. When she got off work, Su Mo drove home and saw Ms. Kong waiting for the bus at the intersection in front of her. She covered her chest as if she was very uncomfortable, so she quickly stopped the car there and got out to help her. Andy, what's wrong? It's an old problem. Ms. Kong saw her and smiled. It's okay. You said it's okay. I saw that you were uncomfortable from afar. Let me take you home. Su Mo helped her get in the car. When he started the car, he asked worriedly, How about going to the hospital? Ms. Kong refused immediately. I said it's okay. Really, don't worry about me. I'll go back and take 2 pills. I'll be fine after lying down and resting. Su Mo nodded and looked at the rearview mirror while driving. You can't be like a child who is afraid of getting an injection when she is uncomfortable. Ms. Kong was speechless for a moment. Su Mo knew that she had guessed correctly. She smiled. You're right. Let's go to the hospital. It seemed that she was about to turn the car around. Ms. Kong said hurriedly, I'm really fine today. Look, I'm fine now. Su Mo let her go after repeatedly promising her. The car drove out again. She was driving, and Ms. Kong was texting in the back seat. Seeing that she should be fine, Su Mo was relieved. After a long time, they finally arrived at Ms. Kang's home. Su Mo wanted to go back directly, but she was worried. Ms. Kong, I'll eat here. Ms. Kong smiled. I'll cook for you. Su Mo liked her very much. He coaxed her, let me cook today. Teacher Kong was still smiling as she brought her upstairs. Her place was a little simple, but Suemo was very used to it. It felt better than staying at Kong Xiao's place. It was very real. As soon as she entered the house, Teacher Kong was busy looking for fruits and food for her. Suemo went to the kitchen and opened the fridge. All the ingredients are here. You don't need to go out. Even so, she still made an inventory and ordered some fresh ingredients from the delivery service. After she was done, she put on an apron and prepared to cook. At Sumo's place, it was very natural for her to cook for Teacher Kong. It wasn't because of Kong Xiao, but because of Teacher Kang's contribution to the home of love. Teacher Kong took care of her when she was sick. She remembered his kindness. While Suemo was cooking, Teacher Kong made another call and talked for a while in the room. When he came out, he chatted with Suemo. Young people nowadays don't know how to cook. Among my students, Wen Yuan is the best cook. Actually, Wen Yuan's family background was the best, but he was not impetuous. Teacher Kong also liked him. Hearing her words, Suemo grunted softly. Wen Yuan's cooking is quite delicious, but most of it is done by CEO Yi. Chapter 41:20. She smiled and Teacher Kong couldn't help but chuckle as well. You little brat, there's more to your words. You're not happy that Wen Yuan is doing well? Suemo had a relationship with her, and now that there was no one else around, she didn't have to hide it anymore. Teacher Kong smiled as well. It's good, and you're doing well too. I hope you're doing well too. There was a deeper meaning behind those words. Suemo cleverly chose not to reply, afraid that they would talk about Kong Xiao. She wasn't sure how much Teacher Kong knew about her and Kong Xiao, but she guessed that she was probably a mother, otherwise she wouldn't have taken care of her. She continued to cut the vegetables and said softly, Actually, I'm fine with living a normal life. Teacher Kong said softly, Suemo, you'll have to get married and have children in the future. Let fate decide. Suemo said softly, then smiled. Teacher Kong, aren't you living well like this? That's not the same. Teacher Kong sighed and stroked her hair, wanting to say something, but swallowing it back down. Suemo didn't say anything and continued to cook quietly. Teacher Kong looked at the time, looking a little anxious, but he suppressed it so that Suemo wouldn't notice. Suemo was done cooking. It was a simple meal of 2 dishes and a soup. When she brought it to the dining room, she said, I'll make it simpler. I'm not good at cooking main dishes either. Teacher Kong hurriedly said, That's great. I've troubled you already. Suemo scooped rice for her and smiled. Teacher Kong, don't stand on ceremony. It's what I should do. You've taken care of you before, too. Teacher Kong said casually, Kong Xiao has taken care of you, too. If he's inconvenient one day, will you take care of him, too? Suemo froze for a moment before smiling. He'll always have an assistant and a part-time helper. Teacher Kong sighed. That's not the same. An assistant and a part-time helper are only convenient for work. They're not a comfort to the soul. As she said that, she stole a glance at Suemo and said, I heard that he might be going to film in the future, and he might be gone for half a year. I'm really worried about him being alone outside. Suemo pursed her lips and said softly, He's going to enter the film industry. Teacher Kong paused and sighed. Actually, I don't know much about this, so I'm asking you. Suemo nodded and thought for a moment before saying, I'll ask around for you one day. She could always ask Wen Yuan, and Wen Yuan would definitely ask CEO Yi. She could get some information. However, Suemo was a little confused. Why don't you just ask Kong Xiao? If you were to talk to me about this, I wouldn't be talking to you about this. Teacher Kong sighed softly. Actually, I don't expect him to become famous. I just hope that he can be safe and find someone to live a good life with. Suemo sighed in a low voice. Teacher Kong Xiao actually became very famous a long time ago. Although she did not know, she could estimate that with Kong Xiao's conservative net worth of over $1 billion over the years, if he invested, it would not just be a conservative figure. He would be an A-list male star. Teacher Kong sighed. What's the use of being popular? He's still the same person. Forget it. Let's not talk about him. Let's eat. Just as he said that, someone knocked on the door. Suemo looked at Teacher Kong. Who's coming at this hour? Outside, the sky was already dark. Teacher Kong said, Maybe it's Kong Xiao. He said that he's coming over for dinner today. Sumo's heart immediately cursed. Her meal was going to benefit Kong Xiao. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 41:21. However, she thought about it carefully. He had taken care of her for a long time, and a meal was nothing. Thus, she calmed down. Mr. Kong went to open the door. It was indeed Kong Xiao. Kong Xiao seemed to have come from outside, as he looked rather haggard. Black trousers, a gray shirt, and a long black coat. It was simple but very good-looking. When he saw Su and Mo, he seemed a little surprised as well. Then, he tiptoed in and placed a hand on Mr. Kang's shoulder to greet him. He brought her to the dining table naturally before looking at Su and Mo and smiling. "You're here too?" Su and Mo didn't want to talk to him anymore. She replied softly and looked at him. "Get another bowl." Even though she tried her best to look calm, her voice was still a little hoarse and unnatural. Kong Xiao glanced at her and smiled before heading to the kitchen to get a bowl for himself. Mr. Kong looked at the two of them and felt that they were a little awkward, but it didn't seem like they were going to separate. There was still some meaning in it. Mr. Kong looked at Kong Xiao and smiled. "I'm not feeling well. Su and Mo happened to see me on the way. She's doing really well and wanted to send me home and cook for me." Kong Xiao smiled and picked up a piece of meat for Mr. Kong. "Mom, you have to thank her properly." Mr. Kong glared at him. "What I mean is that you have to thank her. I'm an old man, and I don't know what young people like." This was the first time she glared at her son like this. Kong Xiao fell helpless as he looked at Su and Mo. Miss Su is kind-hearted and doesn't ask for anything in return. Mr. Kong was furious. His son wasn't like this usually. He was different today. He was clearly here, but it seemed like he was in a fight with Su and Mo to the end. She really couldn't understand the world of young people. Mr. Kong was so angry that he couldn't say anything. Su and Mo knew from the start that Mr. Kong was the one who made Kong Xiao come over. Actually, it wasn't that she didn't feel anything when they parted on bad terms. But now that she saw Kong Xiao's attitude, she felt that it was good for them to part. He was getting impatient, and she didn't miss him too much either. She could still live on her own. It was clear that it was good for them to part. She didn't speak and ate in silence. Mrs. Kong and Mrs. Kong didn't talk much either and ate in silence. After the meal, Su and Mo took the initiative to clear the dishes and left. There was no point in staying any longer. Teacher Kong felt that Kong Xiao was being rude and glared at him. "Aren't you going to send me off?" Kong Xiao finally looked at Su and Mo. "Let me send you off." Su and Mo said calmly, "No need. I drove here." In the end, her heart softened. She bid farewell to Teacher Kong warmly and even hugged her, telling her to take care of herself. Teacher Kong nodded and told her to come often, but Su and Mo didn't dare to. After Su and Mo left, Teacher Kong turned around and scolded his son. "You are really infuriating me. What a great opportunity. Don't tell me you were just fooling around. Su and Mo is such a good girl." Before she could finish, Kong Xiao patted her shoulder. "I'll send her off." Teacher Kong nodded in satisfaction. "Be careful on the road." Concho made a gesture and hurried down the stairs. As soon as Su and Mo got into the car, Kong Xiao opened the door and sat beside her. "I didn't drive. Can you give me a ride?" "You didn't drive?" Su and Mo asked incredulously. End of chapter. Chapter 41:22. New wife number 1. "Hubby, I'm addicted to spoiling you." Latest chapter. He leaned his head against the back of the chair and murmured, "I just got here from the airport. My assistant brought my luggage to my place. I've been flying for more than 10 hours. I haven't slept for 24 hours. I'll take a nap." Then, Kong Xiao went to sleep. Su and Mo was speechless. She reached out to shake his arm and said, "Kong Xiao, get up. You can sleep here." She reminded him a few times, but he didn't seem like he was going to wake up. In the end, he probably thought she was annoying him. So he reached over to unbuckle her seatbelt and dragged her to his side. He did all this with his eyes closed. His strength was so great that Su and Mo couldn't resist at all. She fell into his arms in a very awkward position. She clenched her fists and pressed them against his shoulders. Kong Xiao. His eyes were still closed, and his handsome face was buried in her neck. His lips were pressed against her soft skin, and his breath was hot on her skin. Her entire body was trembling. "If you dare to move again, I'll take you right here," he said. Suemo was furious. She clenched her fists and hit his shoulder. "What is this? Kong Xiao, let go of me." He opened his eyes, and when his dark eyes met hers, Suemo was stunned for a moment before she was completely stunned. There was a complicated look in his eyes. There was coldness, desire, and a trace of hatred. She was even more annoyed. What did he have to hate her? Kong Xiao held her waist and said, "What's wrong? Didn't you continue your relationship with your ex-boyfriend today?" Suemo was dazed for a moment before she understood what he meant. She sneered, "What does that have to do with you? But if we're talking about continuing our relationship, it's not an ex-boyfriend, but a current boyfriend. How dare you say that?" His eyes were cold, and his Adam's apple couldn't stop moving. He wouldn't tell her that he had taken a bunch of photos of Suemo in the office. Lin Minxin, that scumbag, would definitely not let him off easy. But Suemo didn't know about this, and he didn't want to tell her. However, he was angry. He was angry that she was in contact with someone like Lin Minxin. He was also angry that she didn't contact him and didn't respond to him. Did she really not care? She knew it. Concho's mind was filled with many thoughts, anger, hate, all about her. Now that she said this, he wanted to strangle her. The reason why he was so cold before was because he was angry, but she didn't have a heart. She didn't know, or maybe she didn't love him anymore. Kan Xiao heaved a long sigh. "Get off." His voice was cold, as if he had made some kind of decision. Suemo stared at him. He waited for a long time, but she did not get off him. He looked at her and said, "Get off." This time, Suemo smiled coldly. "Mr. Kong, this car is mine." She opened the car door and said, "Get out." However, just as she opened the car door, she was pierced by a flash of light. The large group of reporters outside happened to take a picture of her lying on Kong Xiao's body. His appearance was, well, very warm. Suemo almost jumped up. She quickly closed the door and glared at Kong Xiao. "Did you call the reporter?" He leaned against the car lazily and smiled lazily. "I'm not that bored." Suemo was very suspicious. She climbed onto the driver's seat and said, "Get off." "How'd I get off now?" He whispered, "Take me home." Chapter 41-23. Suemo glared at him. "Drive yourself if you want to go home." He looked at her for a while more before breaking out into a smile. On his face, there was still a faint trace of exhaustion, but he seemed to be quite happy. Reaching out, he unbuckled her safety belt and dragged her back. The world spun around her, and Suemo didn't know why she switched places with him. By the time she came back to her senses, Kong Xiao had already started the car and said, "Buckle up your seatbelt." Suemo glared at him before she went to fasten her seatbelt. She looked ahead and realized that they weren't on the way to his apartment. He seemed to know what she was thinking as he said calmly, "I moved a long time ago. Don't you know?" Suemo didn't say anything in embarrassment. She looked out of the car. At this time, it was already very busy. The street lights were like a long golden dragon from one end to the other. When there was a traffic jam, the car also went from one end to the other side of the sky. Kong Xiao was indeed a little tired. When the car stopped, he turned to look at her. "I'm going to smoke." His voice was rather cold as he took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it up before taking a long puff. The smoke dissipated. He had opened the car window. Suemo shrank back, but didn't say anything. She turned to look out of the window on the other side. The traffic was still congested, so congested that it made people panic. Luckily, Kong Xiao only smoked one cigarette before he stopped. He wound up the car window and turned on the music, looking as though he was driving his own car. This was clearly the first time he had driven her car. In the silence, he spoke with a deep voice. "Did you and Lin Minxin bump into each other by chance?" Suemo didn't want to answer his question at first, but for some reason, she replied, "Yes, I saw him when I was walking. He's in Ruanyun's hands now." After that, she looked at him. "Are you asking me about business or personal matters?" Kong Xiao's beautiful fingers landed on the steering wheel as he looked at her sideways with a faint smile. "Do you want me to ask about work or personal matters?" This kind of topic and way of talking was a little dangerous. Suemo glanced at him but didn't reply. He just remained silent. The car in front started moving, and Kong Xiao didn't continue the topic. He continued driving until it was close to 10 o'clock when he reached his villa. What was supposed to be a 40-minute drive ended up taking nearly 2 hours. He stopped the car and tilted his head to look at her. It's too late to stay here for one night. It'll take at least an hour to get back, even if there's no traffic. It's not too late. Su Imo waited for him to get out of the car before moving over. In the end, Kong Xiao got out of the car, and she moved over, but he held the car door and dragged her out with one hand and held her with the other. When Su Imo came into contact with his warm body temperature, he lowered his eyes and said very softly, "Kong Xiao, let go. I said it's getting late. I'll leave tomorrow." He lowered his head and stared at her slightly rounder face. "Or are you afraid? Or are you afraid of playing?" Her voice became lower and lower, until it sounded as if she was being sucked into his mouth. He reached out and caressed her face. Su Imo escaped, but this made it seem as if she was moving herself into his arms, allowing him to play with her as he pleased. Under such circumstances, even Kong Xiao couldn't help but smile, his breath hot. "Stay here tonight." With that, he put his arms around her waist and lowered his head to kiss her. End of this chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 41-24. At the moment of contact, Su Mo's entire body trembled as if she had been electrocuted, but she did not allow him to kiss her deeply. Her lips were tightly closed, as if she had a final determination. Kong Xiao chuckled softly, and the tip of his tongue brushed past her lips before pressing down gently, hinting at her. Su Imo bit her lower lip subconsciously and accidentally bit Kong Xiao. His eyes darkened as he stared at her for a long time before he said hoarsely, "I'm going in. Are you going to bite me?" Su Imo was speechless and helpless as she stared at him blankly. She could not hear what he was saying and could only hear the rumbling in her ears. When she came back to her senses, she felt a pain in her chin. She instinctively opened her lips, and Kong Xiao kissed her. It had been many days since they had last kissed each other, so the taste was naturally different from before. It was like an electric whip, and Su Imo was unable to endure this kind of kiss, so she involuntarily moved back, but Kong Xiao did not allow her to move forward until she was pressed against the car door. The cold car made Su Mo's head sober for a moment. She pressed against his shoulder and said with difficulty, "No, not here." Kong Xiao stopped and caressed her overheated face. His voice was hoarse. "Don't you miss me at all?" "No." Su Imo bit her lip and glared at him. He chuckled softly. "I know you do." He put one hand through the gap between her and the car, holding her waist and pressing her forward. "How dare you say you don't miss me?" Their bodies were compatible, and they were an adult man and woman. Moreover, they had done it before, so they could naturally feel each other's feelings. Su Imo was a little angry and hit him. "Let go of me." She then turned her head to the side angrily. Physical matters have never been a problem. Kong Xiao laughed and sighed. "Then you don't mind doing it with me once or twice." With that, he carried her up without a care and walked straight to the villa where he lived. There were 2 Andes who usually took care of him here. They were originally listening for the sound, but when they saw that Mr. Kong had returned with a girl, they hid and disappeared. So, in the huge villa, only the sound of Kong Xiao's footsteps could be heard. Su Imo hit his shoulder hard. "Let go. You're a pervert. I'm going to sue you." He looked down. "Don't you want to?" He carried her into his bedroom and examined her thoroughly in the most extravagant of bedrooms. His body, which had been empty for a long time, naturally ignited with just a touch, and he burned for most of the night. Late at night, Su Imo was so tired that he fell asleep. Kong Xiao, on the other hand, was filled with an indescribable spirit after her exhaustion. It was as if all of her vitality had been recovered from her body. He tilted his head and gazed at her. His voice was low and hoarse. Asleep, she did not make a sound and just buried her face in the quilt. Kong Xiao had no choice but to take out some paper towels to clean her up, just like an old maid. He wanted to take a shower himself. After taking a shower, he was still not satisfied. His body was satisfied, but his mind was not. He walked into the living room and pulled out a bottle of red wine from the wine cabinet. He poured himself a glass, but did not drink it. He just played with the expensive wine glass. She took a cigarette with one hand and sat on the sofa in her bathrobe, looking at the night view outside. However, his thoughts drifted to Sue and Mo, who was in the bedroom. He was still a little annoyed with her. End of this chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 4125. He was abroad. Lin Minxin's affair had been exposed, but she didn't call him. She pretended that he didn't exist. She thought that if she kept quiet, the matter would be over and that Ruan Yun and Lin Minxin would let her off. Kong Xiao raised his glass and drank the wine in one gulp. After that, he poured himself another glass. His gaze shifted from outside to the bedroom, quietly watching the person sleeping in the bedroom. She was in a deep sleep and didn't know anything. She didn't know that after they got together, they had to face everything together. This fool didn't know it all. She thought that he wouldn't look for her after a few arguments. Did she think that they would break up just like that? Kong Xiao knew that it was because Su Mo didn't care about him. After being hurt once, it wasn't easy to find that kind of feeling again. His originally angry mood also calmed down a little. He finished the wine in the glass and smoked the cigarette. Originally, he should have immediately returned to the bedroom, but he didn't. He just quietly looked at the night scenery outside. In the past, he was alone. Now, there was Su Mo and her loving home. Kong Xiao smiled helplessly and rubbed his forehead with his thumb. He had a headache, but it wasn't really a headache. Compared to Su Mo, everything else was really nothing. He smiled and returned to the bedroom. When he looked at her, he walked faster and sat beside her. His fingers caressed her brows, his heart softening. They hadn't seen each other for a while. She didn't miss him, but he missed her. "You have no conscience," he murmured, his fingers still caressing her face gently. This touch made him feel aroused again, but he was concerned about her body and didn't do it again. He lay beside her and looked at her sleeping face quietly. Thinking of how anxious she was when she was sick, he couldn't help but feel a little scared. He went forward and gently hugged her in his arms, as if that could give her a sense of security. Su Mo didn't know what happened that night. She was so tired that she slept until noon the next day. When she opened her eyes, it was already 11 o'clock. She gritted her teeth and cursed under her breath. She had just sat up when she saw Kong Xiao briskly walking in. His handsome face had a hint of contentment. Su Mo glared at him. "Why didn't you call me?" She had nothing important to do this morning, but she had some things to discuss with Mr. Kong, and they had already made an appointment. If she didn't go now, it would mean that she was too promiscuous last night, and it was with someone else's son. Su Mo felt embarrassed. She gritted her teeth and didn't know what to say. She lifted the quilt and wanted to get out of bed, but she immediately screamed, "Kong Xiao, where are my clothes?" He crawled back into the quilt. Kong Xiao very kindly sat beside her. "We did it last night. You said it was hot, so I didn't wear it. Don't you remember?" She stared at him suspiciously. "I don't have such a hobby. You're not wearing it." He smiled and got up to find a set of clothes from the wardrobe for her. "Make do with it. These are the clothes I wore when I was 20. I'm sorry there aren't any women's clothes here." Su Mo refused. "Where are my clothes from last night?" After she said that, he leaned in dangerously. His masculine scent took over her entire body. Then his hoarse voice rang out, "I was too hasty last night. I tore it off." Su Mo wrapped herself in a blanket, her face completely red as she said angrily, "Bring the clothes over." End of this chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 4126. Kong Xiao smiled and didn't make things difficult for her. He handed her the clothes and said, "I'll wait for your lunch." Su Mo was silent for a few seconds. "You go out first." He was in a good mood. After a few steps, he turned back and said, "By the way, my mother called me. I said you were still sleeping." Kong Xiao. She was so angry that she threw a pillow at him. He easily caught it and smiled. "Do you think she doesn't know that we slept together and that we have done it?" He put the pillow on the bed and bent down. She is also very happy. He even rubbed her nose with the tip of his nose and then walked out slowly, which made Su Mo grind his teeth in anger. She immediately put on clothes. They were too big for her at the age of 20, but fortunately, they could be barely worn when they were rolled up. She brushed her teeth and went downstairs. She saw Kong Xiao sitting at the dining table with a goblet in his hand, drinking in broad daylight. She muttered under her breath and slowly sat down. Kong Xiao looked down. Is there anything important in the afternoon? I mean, home of love. Su Mo was hungry and began to eat. She didn't need to be polite with him. Anyway, it was just a matter of body and body. She just needed to pull up her pants, so she asked, "Why do you ask?" Kong Xiao said slowly, "If there is nothing important, I will go to your place and move my things here." Su Mo paused. "I didn't say I would move here." Su Mo Kong Xiao's voice was a little angry. "What do you think I am?" Su Mo bit his lips. "Nothing, we just slept for one night. You don't think it will last forever, do you?" Without waiting for him to speak, she continued, "By the way, last night he knew what she was going to ask, so he said angrily, 'I took measures.'" Su Mo nodded. "That's good." She suddenly smiled and said, "Your skills are quite good." Kong Xiao gritted his teeth. She used to mind that he had a woman, but now she smiled and praised him for his skills. What did she think he was? What did she think he was? Kong Xiao's face didn't look good, and he ate with a gloomy face. Su Mo didn't care about him. He didn't call her even once these days, so it was reasonable. He slept with her just because he wanted her to sleep with him, and moved in with him just because he wanted her to. Did she even have any freedom left? Su Mo ate happily, but the more happy she was, the more unhappy Kong Xiao was. The meal was not peaceful either. When she had finished, she went to look for her car keys and bag. Concho was angry and said, "Upstairs in the living room." Su Mo directly went upstairs to take his things and went downstairs. He was about to leave. He stopped her. "Where are you going this afternoon?" "Go home and rest." Su Mo snorted angrily. But when she said that, he laughed. "Are you afraid to see Teacher Kong? Afraid that she will say that you slept with her son?" Su Mo was immediately agitated. "It was her son who slept with me." "Kong Xiao, you don't have to put the bucket of shit on me." The smile on Kong Xiao's face deepened, right? "I was the one who slept with you." Su Mo glared at him, then quickly walked out and slammed the door when he got into the car. Kong Xiao only laughed, treating her as a child throwing a tantrum. He had expected that she would refuse, but he was still a little disappointed in his heart. He had always wanted to live with her and then get married and have children, so he would just leave it to fate. "My speed has been especially slow recently. I'm trying to recover so that I can update tomorrow. Momo duh. Good night, everyone." End of this chapter. Chapter 41-27. Kong Xiao watched Su Mo leave, quietly watching for a while before looking at her watch. It was almost time, so he took his coat and went out. He drove a Bentley Mulsanne to an office building and took the elevator to a certain floor. Passing through the long corridor, he knocked on the open door. "Director, he." Inside the office was an 800-square-meter office that was divided into many rooms. There was no extra space except for a small tea room at the end of the corridor. He Huan was holding a large stack of documents in her hands. She looked at him and said, "Let's talk in my office." Kong Xiao nodded and followed her in. He Huan grabbed a staff member. "Make a cup of coffee for Mr. Kong." Kong Xiao smiled. "My mother is a teacher. My surname is Kong, so you can call me Kong Xiao from now on." He Huan looked at him carefully and smiled. "I'll call you that directly. As for them, you can train them one by one." Kong Xiao didn't insist and walked into her office with He Huan. It was a simple office. A large desk took up almost a quarter of the office. There was a sofa against the wall and a large bookcase. There were no decorations at all. This was He Huan's character. Everything was simple. They sat down, and He Huan handed him a script. "Take a look at it. If you think it's good, you can accept it. I heard that you don't have a manager now and are negotiating on your own. Is that right?" Kong Xiao nodded. "I've seen a few managers arranged by the company, but none of them are satisfied." He Huan smiled. "You want Su Mo to be your manager? Don't forget that Su Mo came from Stars Entertainment. Are you planning to go to Stars Entertainment or pull Su Mo to King Entertainment?" Kong Xiao didn't answer directly. He looked at the script seriously. Yuan let go of the previous topic and placed her hand on the sofa beside her. This movie needs a mature male actor. Previously, I liked Mu by the most. After all, you know that he has a lot of acting experience. However, he's no longer an actor. Now, he's Qin Mo's rival. No matter how you look at it, he's not suitable. And now, Kong Xiao was the second best. There was a depth in Kong Xiao's eyes that even Yi Mubai couldn't match. This might have something to do with his experience. Kong Xiao had a rough idea and smiled faintly. Why did you choose me? Is it because you heard about me, so you think I'm suitable? He had read it once and agreed with Yuan. The male lead was indeed suitable for him. Yi Mubai's temperament was too clean, but Yi Mubai's acting skills could make up for it. After Kong Xiao asked the question, Yuan just looked at him and smiled. Kong Xiao calmed down and lowered his head to read the script for about 2 hours. During this time, Yuan didn't rush him. Instead, she changed his coffee once. 2 hours later, Kong Xiao looked up at Yuan. I want to know how much you plan to invest in this film. And who are the investors? Yuan smiled. King Entertainment is fully invested. Kong Xiao put down the script. Then I can't take it anymore. Why? Yuan took her cup of coffee, not in a hurry. Because she could see that Kong Xiao was very interested in this film. The only difference now was the matter of money. She pondered for a moment. Your salary can be set at 80 million. This is the salary of an A-list actor. Kong Xiao, you know that. In a chapter. Chapter 4128. I'll act for free and invest another 200 million. I want to be an investor with King Entertainment. Even Kong Xiao was straightforward. Yuan looked at him for a long time before she chuckled. Kong Xiao, do you know that you're betraying us by doing this? Would President Qin allow such a thing to happen? That's two different things. Kong Xiao lit a cigarette and took a drag. I'll invest in the name of the company. You won't get financing after it's done, right? Yuan's expression darkened. I thought you did it for art. Yi Mubai did it for money. Besides, I've never been an actress. I entered this circle to make more money. Kong Xiao held the cigarette and smiled. Doesn't my prototype fit the character in your script? Yuan sighed. Let me think about it. If she agreed to Kong Xiao, she would be betraying him. Yuan knew Qin Mo's temper very well. Besides, if she let Kong Xiao get out of control, she would be skinned alive by Qin Mo after King Entertainment lost Kong Xiao. Besides, Qin Mo didn't know who wrote the script in her hands for the time being. Yuan had a headache. She had always been decisive, but she didn't think it through immediately. Instead, she lit a cigarette and took a puff. I'll call you when I'm done thinking. Kong Xiao stood up calmly. Then I'll wait for your good news. Yuan felt that Kong Xiao was another Qin Mo. He was very easy to talk to. If someone could act it, she would kick him right now. Yuan had a bad temper. She had asked someone to send Kong Xiao off to drive him away. Kong Xiao left and looked at the time. He wanted to see his mother, but then he thought about Su Mo and decided to see her. When he arrived at Su Mo's building, her car wasn't there. Kong Xiao sat in the car and smoked 2 cigarettes. He knew that she had gone home of love and was a little annoyed. Wasn't she tired after a whole night? He thought about it and called Su Mo. She picked up. Where are you? He asked directly. Su Mo paused. Kong Xiao, who are you asking me? Kong Xiao gritted her teeth. The man you slept with last night. Su Mo's answer was to hang up the phone. He was so angry that he wanted to call him again, but he was also proud, so he didn't. He didn't leave either. He parked his car there, smoked, and slowly read the script. As they waited, the sky darkened. When Su Mo's car slowly drove over, she saw Kong Xiao wearing a black shirt and a white shirt, sitting in the expensive car, holding a cigarette in one hand and reading something. The further she went, the faster her heart beat, for Kong Xiao looked very handsome. When the car brushed past, Kong Xiao raised her eyes and met Su Mo's focused gaze. To be honest, he was a little tired, but at this moment his gaze seemed to have recovered. All of his unwillingness had completely melted away. Between heaven and earth, there was only pure white like snow. Only him, only Su Mo. Kong Xiao suddenly remembered that night a long time ago, when they had madly made love right here at his car. That night, she had been in such a state of mind. Later, when it was spread online and he misunderstood that she had done it, how did she feel? He looked at her calmly, but under such calmness, there was an indescribable fire in his heart. Kong Xiao opened the car door and got out. End of this chapter. Chapter 41:29. Kong Xiao got out of the car and walked to Sumo's car. Sumo stopped the car and turned off the engine, but she didn't get out immediately. Instead, she pretended to be indifferent. What's the matter? Didn't you sleep enough last night? What do you mean sleep? Be more elegant. Kong Xiao locked the car window. Open the door, or do I have to do it myself? Sumo thought for a moment and opened the door. Anyway, he had been doing it all night, so he should be a weakling today. She got out of the car and held her bag in front of her. Say it. I'm hungry. Let's go eat, he said calmly. And then he took her bag and carried it in his hand. Sumo was stunned. Eat? Me? And you? What else? He looked at her. I'll eat. You watch. Sumo stood still. I mean, why should I eat with you? I want to eat at home. Kong Xiao held her waist and stood still. Stop it. I'm a little tired and don't want to cook. If you want to cook, I don't mind waiting for another hour. He said it very seriously. Sumo looked at him and suddenly lost her temper. She went out with him and said after a while, Why don't you drive? I'll eat at the door. It's very convenient. He smiled, but Sumo still felt that it was a little strange. There was no fancy restaurant here, only a vegetarian restaurant. The food was good and there were many people. When she was dragged in by him and countless eyes were looking at them, Sumo wanted to scream. Kong Xiao was a celebrity, a super popular celebrity, but he didn't even wear sunglasses. He was clearly setting her up. So when he ordered, she covered her face with her hands because many people were taking pictures of them. She lowered her voice. Kong Xiao, did you do it on purpose? What do you mean by bringing you here for dinner? He took out his wallet and paid for the food. Then he led her to a seat by the window and said casually, Is it wrong to order a meal with your girlfriend? I didn't admit that I'm your girlfriend. She gritted her teeth. Put on your sunglasses. I'm not blind. He refused. Sumo insisted. You're a celebrity. Kong Xiao looked at her, and when she was a little scared, he said, But I only want to be your man. Sumo. Kong Xiao brought up her previous topic again. You're not my girlfriend. We're just sex buddies. His voice wasn't soft, and Sumo wanted to strangle him, but there were so many people around, so she could only endure it. She held her chin in her hand and played with the chopsticks in her hand, waiting for the food to be served. Kong Xiao's gaze became much gentler. You're still angry? I didn't even settle the score with you when your bed photos were exposed. What kind of bed photos are those? They're just photos of us kissing. Sumo snorted. Don't you have any ex-girlfriends? You have plenty of them. When she finished, Concho was silent. Sumo glanced at him. As for Kong Xiao, he felt a stab of pain in his heart. It was precisely because his past, in her eyes, was a male whore's past. He didn't even have the qualifications to be jealous or angry. He was angry, but he really couldn't get angry because she had seen his live version. If he continued to be angry, who knew where she would run off to? He wasn't young anymore. He had limited time to live, and he didn't want to waste it. That was it. Concho swallowed his pride. The waiter also served the dishes and recognized Kong Xiao. He even took the menu and asked Kong Xiao to sign it. Later, seeing that Kong Xiao was not arrogant, the boss came over and asked for a photo. End of chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 41:30. Kong Xiao stood there, watching Sumo snicker. He reached out and grabbed Sumo, placing her in front of him. My wife. The boss's eyes lit up even more, and he brought his 18 waiters to take a photo with the big star. Sumo was unwilling, because this kind of photo would definitely be hung on the wall to attract customers. If she took such an obvious photo, how could she live in this neighborhood in the future? She wanted to escape, but she was very small, and Kong Xiao trapped her in his arms with one hand. His body was very hot, and it was very easy for him to hold her with one hand. Sumo had to admit that it was not a small pleasure to lean against his tall and sturdy body. She simply leaned against him, but she didn't expect that Kong Xiao would be even more shameless. He put his hands around her waist and rested his chin on her shoulder, which was an extremely intimate position. Suemo struggled a little, but he refused to let go and even chuckled. Mrs. Kong, pay attention to the camera. In the end, the photo was of her looking at him from the side, and he was also looking at her. Very, very, very loving. The boss was very satisfied and said that he would wash dozens of photos and hang them everywhere. Suemo was so embarrassed that she had already gone to eat in silence. Kong Xiao sat opposite her. Are you thinking about moving? How did you know? Suemo cut him off and glared at him. Kong Xiao laughed. My place is quite spacious, and I don't know if someone would do me the honor. I don't want to live with a man, she said in a small voice. Kong Xiao heard it and then asked, what about marriage? Would that be better? She couldn't bear to listen to it. How long have we known each other? Kong Xiao said slowly. It seems like many years. Suemo snorted. You think I'm small? Did I? As he ate, he took the time to speak very slowly. Did I make you think that I despised you last night because you're a small hun? I think I took good care of them. You were very happy last night, and they were very comforted. Suemo was even more frightened. Kong Xiao, I'm eating. He smiled and did not say anything else. After dinner, a group of people blocked the entrance, asking for Konkyo's autograph. Kong Xiao put on his sunglasses and politely said coldly, I'm sorry, I'm eating with my wife and we don't want to be disturbed. Suemo didn't know what to say. She couldn't say that she wasn't his wife, could she? At this moment, Concho took her hand and strolled around leisurely. Let's walk for a while before going home. She gritted her teeth. We should go back to our own homes. Really? He was still holding her hand. Let's go to the convenience store in front to buy something. She thought he was buying cigarettes. And he really did buy cigarettes. Something happened. Back. Smoke. Don't ask her how she knew, because after he bought the cigarettes, he also smoked 2 boxes of large condoms and paid the bill together. Suemo really didn't want to admit that she was his wife. She wanted to leave, but the entrance was filled with his fans. She suddenly had a bold thought. He was doing this on purpose, dragging her here. In the future, everyone would know that she had slept with him and used a few boxes of t-shirts. Suemo was infuriated, but no matter how angry she was, she still pretended to be affectionate as she leaned against his back and pinched his waist with both hands. Stop it, I'm paying. We'll do it when we get home. His voice was elegant and pleasant, and he was good-looking, charming everyone. Everyone understood what he meant. Konkyo's wife or girlfriend couldn't wait to go home and do it. When Suemo went out, she was furious and walked in front of him, ignoring him. He wanted to hold her hand, but she ignored him. Chapter 41:31. Kong Xiao was not angry and just followed behind her. Why are you angry? Isn't that how couples usually do things? Suemo asked him. Are we husband and wife? He looked at her and smiled. Aren't we husband and wife? We've already slept together. What are we if not husband and wife? He held her hand and played with it in his palm, not caring about the gazes around them. Suemo bit her lip. Are you trying to make it so that I can't stay here anymore? Is it that obvious? He smiled. Suemo gritted her teeth. Kong Xiao, do you know that you're a special bastard? Kong Xiao smiled. Really? I think I'm very considerate. For example, I know that you want to do it tonight. Suemo bit her lip. No, I want to. He pulled her to stand under a tree and pulled her over. She wanted to shake him off. Kong Xiao, can you be a little more respectful and respect other people's choices? Do it with me or I'll find someone else. He looked at her seriously. Do you want me to find someone else? A lot of women. I'll sleep in this woman's bed tonight and another woman's bed tomorrow. Do you want me to be like this? She glared at him. He continued shamelessly. You've taken in so many people. Why don't you add me? Suemo, if you don't want to be with me, I'll let you see how I fall. He was blatantly threatening her. Suemo was furious. Up to you. You're so cruel. He smiled and pinched her face, his gaze indulgent and doting. Then, he lowered his head and kissed her. She wanted to push him away, but his kissing skills were too good. She was angry and anxious. She punched his shoulder hard and said in a muffled voice, "You male whore." She was so anxious that she even said those words. Kong Xiao was originally trying to coax her, but her words inevitably reminded him of what had happened before. He let go of her lips and glared at her for a long time before saying in a low voice, "Do you want to see how a male whore pleases a sugar daddy?" His tone was full of danger. Suemo was shocked and looked up. He was smiling, but there was no smile in his eyes at all. It was full of bitterness. Suemo clenched his fists. "Jiang Zhua, you bastard. Bastard. I'll serve you once too." His voice was low and husky as he carried her horizontally. "What for?" Anxious, she reached out to hit him, but he didn't care. He directly brought her back to her apartment, closed the door, and carried her into the master bedroom. He found the tie at the head of the bed, fastened it around her, and put it over the head of the bed. Then he half knelt in front of her and took off his coat. His fingers stroked the buttons of his shirt, and he gently unbuttoned them one by one. His movements were very seductive, comparable to a male prostitute. Even Suemo, who was used to seeing all kinds of handsome men in the entertainment industry, couldn't help but be tempted at this time. She licked her lower lip and stared at him. "What are you doing?" He unbuckled his belt and chuckled. "What do you think?" Suemo was so scared that he closed his eyes. "I'm telling you, don't act recklessly. I'll call the police." "Sure." He stuffed the phone in her hands and even dialed 110 for her. Then, he leaned over her body and began to plunder, saying while enjoying himself, "Call the police. I've already dialed for you. Scream for help and tell them that Kong Xiao is raping you." Suemo bit down on her lips. "Don't think that I won't dare to." He chuckled and bit down hard on her soft neck. The call connected. On the other side, a gentle voice sounded. "Hello, this is the XX District Police Station." End of Chapter 1. Chapter 41:32. Suemo was stunned. Hearing the voice on the other end, she wanted to say something, but Kong Xiao had already kissed her. All of a sudden, she couldn't even hold her phone. She bit her lip and desperately moved her head back. The voice on the other end was still repeating, "This is XX Police Station. How can I help you?" Suemo raised her head, her translucent and fair throat trembling. She bit her lip and tried her best to speak in the most ordinary tone. "I'm sorry, I called the wrong number." The phone was thrown aside, and her eyes were a little wet, which made her look very lovely. Kong Xiao didn't care about the phone, moved his head over, held her face in his hands, and said in a low voice, "You can't bear to do that to me, huh?" Suemo glared at him and closed her eyes slightly. "Kong Xiao, do you know that you are a bastard?" She didn't want to cry, but she still cried. Her tears fell and seeped into the pillow. She knew that she couldn't escape, so she buried her face in the pillow and didn't say anything. Kong Xiao suddenly became gentle and kissed her lightly. "Are you angry?" She didn't say anything, buried her face, and cried. "Why are you crying?" Kong Xiao coaxed her. "I was just teasing you. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it, huh?" He reached out, untied the tie on her hand, and rubbed her fingers gently. "If you don't want to, then don't do it. Be good, don't cry." He moved his face closer and sucked the tears from the corner of her eyes. She was still crying, and he coaxed her patiently, but she seemed to cry even harder. Kong Xiao murmured in a sexy voice, "I'm coaxing you. Why are you still crying? None of your business." Her voice was hoarse, and she didn't want to look at him, so she turned her face away. Kong Xiao chased after her and kissed her. Spoiled women were usually very fierce. She kicked him. "Male whore." Her hand was suddenly held high, and the surroundings suddenly became dangerous. Kong Xiao's eyes were full of danger. "Anything is fine, but don't call me that in the future. None of your business." She was a little willful, and her eyes were red. Kong Xiao felt a little sorry for her. In fact, he knew that she minded. If they were still the same as before and just slept together, she wouldn't mind, but she wasn't. Whenever she was with him, she would think of the past. She couldn't let it go, or perhaps she hadn't truly forgiven him. Forgive his abandonment. Forgive his confusion. Kong Xiao knew that he had to give her time and space, but he didn't want to give it. If he gave it to her, she would probably fly away, so he would rather tie her up, even if he had to break her wings to keep her. Concho held her tenderly in his arms, his face close to hers. After a while, she struggled against him, and he held her with more strength. Don't move, don't move. Suemo bit his lips. Concho, let go of me. Really let go. No. His voice was hoarse. Not in this lifetime. With that, he moved his face close to her ear and said hoarsely, I won't let you go again. Sumo's eyes became hot, and she bit her lip. Go away. I'm not leaving. He kissed the back of her ear. Momo, I won't leave again, okay? She didn't say a word, buried her face in the wet pillow, and ignored him. Kong Xiao suddenly smiled and leaned over to bite her lips. He paused again. Are you ignoring me because I didn't do it with you? End of this chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 41:33. Suemo was shocked. She turned around and glared at him. He was so shameless. Kong Xiao kissed her chin and then the back of her ear. He sounded like he was begging for sex. But I want to do it. I haven't done it for many days. She couldn't help but feel her throat tighten. Didn't you do it last night? Kong Xiao laughed and leaned over to kiss her. His voice was also hoarse. I wasn't satisfied last night. As he spoke, he took her hand and moved it downwards for her to feel it. The atmosphere suddenly changed, and there was a hint of heat in the air. Suemo bit her lip and glared at him. Kong Xiao coaxed her. Just once, huh? In the end, a man's words couldn't be trusted. If he did it once, he would do it a second time, a third time, or even countless times. After that night, Suemo kicked Kong Xiao out of the house and changed the door lock. She wouldn't let him in again. However, in the following days, she always felt that people would look at her whenever she walked in the neighborhood or ate in the neighborhood. There were even young girls holding notebooks and asking for her autograph because she was Kong Xiao's wife. Suemo was speechless. She called Wen Yuan and asked for advice. Wen Yuan lay on the bed and waited for Yi Mubai to come out. She held the phone and smiled. Do you want to break up with him completely? Suemo felt a little guilty. No, I just don't want him to be too serious. You're afraid of hurting him? Wen Yuan hit the nail on the head. Afraid that you can't give him happiness? Suemo didn't say anything. Wen Yuan held the phone with one hand and drew circles on the bedsheet with the other. Suemo, you're wrong. Kong Xiao is giving you happiness now. You just need to accept it. As for how much you give, I don't think you will mind for the time being. The one who cares about you is the one who gives more. As soon as she finished speaking, a warm and strong body leaned over and whispered into her ear. Are you a relationship expert now? Wen Yuan patted her back. Stop fooling around. I'm talking to Suemo. Yi Mubai smiled and turned over to lean against the bed. His voice was a little hoarse. Hurry up. Wen Yuan glanced at him, but his face blushed a little. CEO, Yi couldn't wait any longer. He grabbed her and held her in his arms. Wen Yuan's body softened under his touch. She bit her lips and protested. Kong Xiao, if you don't want to be broadcasted by Suemo, then hang up. He bit her ear gently. Wen Yuan pushed him away. Stop fooling around. You do your thing, I'll do mine, okay? Yi Mubai held her waist and started to move. Wen Yuan was speechless. He bit his lip and said, wait. He smiled and stopped gracefully. However, when Wen Yuan spoke to Suemo again, Suemo had already hung up. What a joke. She didn't want to hear about the palace of love. Wen Yuan put down his phone and glared at the man. Yi Mubai, you're always like this. Now, he was not in a hurry. He grabbed Wen Yuan and placed him on his lap, pulling his wife's hair from time to time. Don't be too nosy about their affairs. Kong Xiao just needs to put in a bit of effort into it. I can't just ignore it. Wen Yuan said helplessly. Besides, isn't Suemo our friend? She's your friend. To me, she's going to be a traitor. CEO Yi snorted, took out a cigarette, and lit it with a lighter. Wen Yuan was against him smoking at home, but he rarely did that, so she put up with it. Chapter 41:34. Wen Yuan was still looking at him. What do you mean? Yi Mubai looked down. Why do you think Kong Xiao still doesn't have an agent. He has his eyes on Suemo. She could be his wife and his agent. It was killing two birds with one stone. It was a great idea. Suemo was someone cultivated by Yimubai. Now that he had given her to Chin Mo, of course he wouldn't be happy. It was a great loss. When Yuan looked at him, "Are you angry about this?" CEO Yi snorted. "What else?" When Yuan leaned into his arms and said softly, "I think Tang Xiao will eventually go solo, and I don't think he will always be in the entertainment industry. Just like when you have a family, you will want to change your career, right? Otherwise, it will be very hard for him to be separated from Su Mo. I don't think he can take it." When Yuan had just finished speaking, when Yi Mubai pinched her chin and chuckled. "What do you think he can't take it? Is it because he doesn't have a woman to sleep with?" When Yuan slapped his hand away and said in a sweet voice, "I didn't say that." He dragged her back again, and his thin lips touched hers. He chuckled. "Are you worried that I don't have a woman to sleep with when I'm outside? Will you sleep with me?" He was talking nonsense. When Yuan couldn't take it anymore and wanted to strangle him. Asterisk in a luxurious apartment in B City. Yuan opened the door and came in. Chin Mo was watching TV with Yuan in his arms and saying something softly. Hearing the door open, he looked up. "So late." Yuan looked at her watch. "It's only 10. Chin Mo's handsome face turned cold. "You used the word only very well. Mrs. Chin, do you know that you're married now?" Yuan didn't want to argue with him, especially in front of Yuan. She put down her bag and squatted in front of Yuan. "Why aren't you sleeping?" Yuan didn't see her often, but she still liked her. After all, she was her biological daughter. Yuan was very beautiful. She had a shiny black doll's hair, and her facial features were exquisite. Her eyes were big and bright, making her look very cute. She stretched out her little finger. "I'm waiting for Mommy to come home." Yuan smiled gently. "Mommy has to work, so I'll be a little late sometimes. In the future, Yuan can sleep first and don't have to wait for Mommy." However, Yuan insisted, "Daddy has to work too, but Daddy won't come home so late." After saying that, Yuan looked at Yuan cautiously. The anticipation in her eyes was heart-wrenching. Yuan did not know what to say at that moment. Chinamo said calmly, "All right, Mommy is back. Daddy will take you to shower and sleep. Okay?" Yuan looked at her mother stubbornly. "I want Mommy to wash it for me." Yuan was already a few years old. She felt that it was time for her mother to bathe her. Yuan was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled. "Okay, Mommy will wash it for you." The moment she said that, Chinamo looked at her thoughtfully and did not say anything. Yuan brought little Yuan in the bathroom while Chinamo stood by the door. She coughed gently. "Can you bring a set of her pajamas over? I don't know where to put it." Chinamo was still leaning against the wall. After a while, he smiled. "Yuan, you're really a good mother." Yuan was a little annoyed. She said to him in English, "You can change it if you're not satisfied." His handsome face had a hint of coldness. Then, he sneered and said in Mandarin, "I don't remember marrying a fake foreigner." End of chapter. Chapter 4135. But after saying that, he still went to get a set of one-piece pajamas. Yuan took it and looked at it. "Will it be inconvenient for me to take it off and go to the toilet?" Chin Mo's eyes darkened. Yuan has long passed the age of wetting the bed. After that, his slender body went straight out. Yuan always felt that he was angry. She was not afraid of him being angry. Anyway, she had been like this for so many years. Yuan gave Yuan a bath. She filled the pink bathtub with hot water. Yuan was definitely well-raised. It could be seen from the pink bathtub that it was custom-made by Disney. Her big head and small body were soaking in the bathtub. She looked very cute. Even Yuan, who didn't have much maternal love, especially liked it. She had never taken care of Yuan, so she was not good at washing. Not to mention that she was in a hurry. The water was cold after washing. The little fellow sneezed after being carried out. Yuan immediately helped her put on the clothes. Because it was difficult to put on the one-piece pajamas, it took her a while. After putting on the clothes, little Yuan hugged her. "Mommy, hug me." Children were always clingy and wanted to be loved by adults. Yuan hugged her. "Mommy's clothes are wet. Go back to the room and sleep. Okay?" Yuan rubbed against her for a long time. and then she was dejected and looked cute. Iwan smiled. Fortunately, at the door, Chin Mo held the little fellow in his arms. He frowned as soon as he held her up. "Why is it so cold?" Huan said. "The water was a little cold just now." Chin Mo glanced at her and then said very lightly, "She is still young and can't get cold at all. Be careful next time." Huan said yes, and then wanted to go back to the master bedroom to change clothes or take a bath. Chin Mo held Huan in his arms and looked at her quietly for a few seconds. It seemed that he wanted to say something, but then he gave up. He carried the little fellow back to the bedroom, held her in his arms until she was warm, and then told her story. Then Huan fell asleep slowly. Chin Mo stayed with her for about 10 minutes before turning off the lights and returning to the master bedroom. Huan had already showered and was sitting on the sofa in her bathrobe. She was reading a few pages of paper. It was probably a script or something. Chin Mo walked over and stood beside her. His tall figure blocked the light, casting a shadow over Huan's head. She looked up. Chin Mo snatched the paper from her hand and said calmly, "Apart from work and reading these contracts and scripts, don't you ever think about your child?" Huan looked up. "I just gave her a bath." Chin Mo threw the things aside and grabbed her hand to force her to stand up. He easily held her waist with one hand. Their bodies were so different that he had to lower his head to look at her. His voice was slightly hoarse. "Do you think you're a good mother just because you give your child a bath? Huan, do you still remember her birthday? Do you know what she likes to eat, what she's allergic to, and what kind of dress she likes the most?" Huan was speechless. After a long time, she bit her lip and said, "I wanted a child at that time." Chin Mo's expression changed, and his arm holding her waist tightened. "You mean I didn't want Huan at that time?" Huan didn't answer this question. She felt that the child had been born, and Huan had grown up, so there was no need to discuss this issue. Huan was indeed an accident, at least for her. Although it was an accident, it was also within his calculations. She didn't want it at that time because at that time... Chapter 41:36. She didn't want it at that time because she was disappointed with Chin Mo. He forced her to have sex with him, and that was how she got Huan. He named the child Chin Huan. She knew what he meant, but she only felt that it was ironic. If he really cared about her, he wouldn't have treated her like that. Huan remained silent. Chin Mo's expression became deep and dangerous. "I thought you cared about her a little. I don't care about her. Do you think we can maintain this marriage?" Huan asked. Chin Mo narrowed his eyes, lifted her chin with one hand, and asked softly, "Are you really doing this for Huan? Are you sure you're not doing this for that vegetable called Ronyu?" Huan's small body had a large capacity. She stared at him and said, "Ronyu woke up. Yes, so your mind is alive again. You don't dare to divorce because you're afraid that I'll deal with him, right? But you can't forget him, so you took his script and asked Kong Xiao to act in it. Huan, do you think I'm a fool? Or do you think that you don't need to care about my feelings? You can do whatever you want and pursue your spiritual love, right?" Chin Mo's hand gently caressed her red lips as he softly spat out a few cold words. "Last Saturday, where were you? At his book signing event? Where did he write his book? Can you explain it to me?" Huan was a little embarrassed. She bit her lips and said, "I don't need to explain anything to you." "That's right." He nodded in agreement. "For you, I'm just a substitute, a photo. Now that the main character is back, my appearance is useless to you." As he said that, he moved his thin lips behind her ear and said in a hoarse voice, "But Huan, you're my wife now. No matter who you're thinking about, you have to go home, sleep with me, and make love to me." Huan couldn't listen to it anymore. She turned her head away and said, "Stop it. Did I hit your sore spot?" He smiled coldly. "Or you're not even willing to make love to me when you see him." Huan was furious. She broke free from him and undid the belt of her bathrobe. "Aren't you going to do it? If you're going to do it, then hurry up." Chin Mo stared at her face for a while, then slowly moved his gaze downwards. After scanning her face, he coldly said, "I'm not that desperate." Huan folded her clothes and sat on the sofa. She supported herself with one hand and murmured, "Chin Mo, can't we just let each other go? Do you feel that you love me very much?" She smiled and looked up. "If you love me, Why would you bring a woman home to spend the night? Don't make yourself sound so innocent. In our marriage, the only innocent one is Ihuan. Chin Mo's body froze, and his fingers curled into fists. I didn't do anything with her. I was drunk, and she sent me back. That's all. Chin Mo. Ihuan looked down. You said that you didn't touch her, but she had a miscarriage 2 months later. Why were you in the hospital with her? Chin Mo's expression was unprecedentedly serious. Ihuan looked tired. You didn't have anything to do with her. Why did you take care of her for the past few years? You went in and out of her apartment and even didn't return at night. Not to mention that you and her are innocent, let alone that you kept yourself chaste for me. I never slept with her. Chin Mo gritted his teeth. Ihuan, don't be unreasonable. Calm. Wonderful book house. Chapter 41:37. You didn't sleep with me? I didn't sleep with Rongyu either. I didn't stay at his place for a night, nor did I hang out with him at the gynecology department. Ihuan's fingers gently touched her forehead. I was pregnant when she had the miscarriage. I saw it with my own eyes, and I didn't mean to investigate you. Now, are you still going to say that it has nothing to do with you? Chin Mo grabbed her and pressed her against the sofa. Ihuan felt a little dizzy. When she came back to her senses, his face was a little gloomy. He squinted at her and stared at her. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Tell you that you had an abortion with another woman when I was pregnant? Ihuan looked up at him. I'm sorry, you're not worth it. It's me who lowered my self-esteem. Then who is qualified? Rongyu? Seducing him when he was married and trying to get in touch with him? Chin Mo pinched her chin hard. Her skin was particularly sensitive, so her chin was soon bruised. When he let go, it was as if she had done some special service for him. Chin Mo was still staring at her. Tell me, am I right? Did you buy the copyright of his book because you wanted to relive old dreams with him? You said that you didn't sleep with him. Do you really want to sleep with him? He's a vegetable. Can he satisfy you like I do? He became more and more obscene. Ihuan struggled, but he held her firmly and did not let her move. In the end, she was angry and reached out to slap him. When the crisp sound of the slap rang out, the surrounding air froze. Chin Mo's eyes were very scary. He stared at her eyes. In your heart, he is clean, and I am dirty, right? Ihuan turned her face away and did not want to talk to him anymore. Why aren't you answering? He grabbed her hand and pressed it above her head. He narrowed his eyes. Since you don't want to say it, then do it. I don't care who you have in your heart, as long as you moan under my body. Ihuan, do you want to know that every time you pretend not to want it, you can't help but hug me and refuse to let go? At that time, did you still have your moonlight in your heart? He was extremely rude to her and sneered. If Rongyu had seen you like this, would he still think that you're the innocent girl in his heart? Would he still be able to write such a novel? Rongyu was speechless when he saw the way he treated her. As he spoke, he kissed her crazily. He kissed her lips, her neck, and his heart ached. This was probably what it was like to love someone but not be able to get it. She did not love him. She only wanted to believe what she saw, not him. Chin Mo did have a woman before, but it was before marriage. That child was also not his. He was not interested in explaining. He just wanted to sleep with her, of course. Ihuan didn't want him to do this. She struggled and said in a hoarse voice, Let go. I don't want it. He grabbed her hand and pinned her down. He doesn't even want to have sex with me anymore. Ihuan, don't forget that you're my wife and I'm your man. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and pulled, easily succeeding. Ihuan screamed and rubbed her face against his shoulder. She could not stand it when he was especially rough. Are you still thinking about him? His voice was sexy and husky. He was panting as he kissed her so forcefully that it was as if he wanted to swallow her whole. Chapter 41:38. The more she resisted, the more rough he was with her. This was the first time he had treated her so roughly. He wanted to be gentler, but he couldn't stop his anger. Just like that, he was a little out of control. Eventually, he became gentler and got the taste. He held her face and kissed it lightly, his voice hoarse. You just like to make me angry, don't you? Ihuan, don't contact him anymore, huh? If you want to shoot a script, I'll get someone to write it for you. You can shoot as many as you want. Hee-Hwan tilted her face and bit the pillow. Then, she couldn't help but clench her fists and bite them gently, resisting the pleasure he brought. Just when both of them were deeply immersed in the love jade, the door creaked open. Hee-Hwan was standing at the door, holding a baby in her arms. Her voice was a little faint. "Daddy, my head is very dizzy and it hurts a little." Chin Mo was feeling warm, but he stopped very quickly. He cursed softly and covered Hee-Hwan with the quilt. He immediately pulled up his pants and jumped off the bed, carrying Hee-Hwan with one hand. "Are you not feeling well?" Her head was very hot. Hee-Hwan also put on her clothes awkwardly. Chin Mo looked at her. "Hee-Hwan has a fever. Bring the thermometer over and get a glass of water." Since the little one was sick, their interest as parents was naturally gone. At this moment, they were only worried. Hee-Hwan immediately went to get the thermometer for Chin Mo. After Chin Mo put it down, Hee-Hwan went to get a glass of water. She tested the temperature of the water and didn't give it to Hee-Hwan immediately. Instead, she squatted at the side. She asked softly, "Does she have a fever often?" Chin Mo glanced at her. His gaze was a little deep as he said faintly, "Not often." Under his gaze, Hee-Hwan suddenly understood. "She caught a cold because I helped her bathe?" This time, Chin Mo didn't answer her. He just took out the thermometer and looked at it quietly. 39 degrees. You have to go to the hospital. Chin Mo looked at Hee-Hwan and asked softly, "Will she need an injection?" "Maybe." He kissed the baby and took the glass from Hee-Hwan's hand. "Good boy. Drink half a glass of water. Daddy will take you to the hospital." Hee-Hwan looked at Hee-Hwan cautiously. "Mom, are you going?" Chin Mo glanced at her again, then coughed lightly and said, "Go." Hee-Hwan said happily, "Then let's go to the hospital immediately." He was so happy to go to the hospital, even though he was in a daze from the fever. Confused, Hee-Hwan looked at Chin Mo. Chin Mo's expression was very calm. She used to go to the hospital and ask other children why their mothers were holding them when they were getting injections. She said she was born out of a rock. Hee-Hwan didn't know how to refute him, but he felt a little guilty towards Hee-Hwan. She had given birth to the child, but she was angry with him and did not take good care of him. Chin Mo picked up the little fellow and walked straight to her bedroom. He put on his clothes, shoes, and coat, and his movements were particularly swift. After he was done, he stood up with the little fellow in his arms and said to Hee-Hwan, "Take your bag. You and Hee-Hwan will sit in the back seat later." Hee-Hwan nodded and followed behind him. Chin Mo had been very calm, but he walked very fast. He strode into the elevator and went out quickly. In the garage, he opened the car door and let Hee-Hwan in first. Then he held Hee-Hwan in his arms. "Coax her. She has a little temper when she is sick." In fact, this was a little similar to Hee-Hwan. Hee-Hwan was also like this when she was sick. He used to coax her a lot. However, she didn't care at all. She still liked someone else. She never liked him and never took Chin Mo seriously. He didn't understand how he was inferior to that man. End of this chapter. Chapter 41-39. Chin Mo's tone was very calm, but Hee-Hwan could tell from his words that he was unhappy. She wondered if she was overthinking. Chin Mo didn't say anything else and drove straight away. Hee-Hwan held Hee-Hwan in her arms and felt that her forehead was a little hot. She couldn't help but ask, "Chin Mo, how far is the nearest hospital?" "It's a 10-minute drive. It's not very good to go to the nearest hospital." Chin Mo's voice was a little deep in the night. Hee-Hwan grunted and then put her face on Hee-Hwan. "Baby, are you feeling uncomfortable?" Hee-Hwan grunted. "I feel dizzy and want to sleep, but I can't." "Mom, will I die of illness?" "Nonsense, you won't. You'll be fine after an injection and medicine." Hee-Hwan didn't know how to coax children. She thought of how her parents had coaxed her when she was young. Hee-Hwan's fever was a little heavy, and her voice became a little softer. "But Mom, I don't want to take medicine, and I don't want to have an injection either. It's very painful. Let Dad do it for me, okay?" Hee-Hwan laughed. "What's the use of injecting Dad?" Hee-Hwan lay on her stomach and thought for a while. She looked up and said, "But when Dad is not feeling well, if you give Mom an injection, Dad seems to be very happy when he gets better." Hee-Hwan took a long time to understand what Hee-Hwan meant. Her face was a little hot, so she turned to the side. China Mo, who was in the front, said, "Dad's discomfort is different from yours." Iwan wanted to ask why, but because of the high fever and pain all over her body, she closed her eyes and fell asleep after a while. Iwan lowered her head and looked at the little girl. She said softly, "She's asleep." China Mo didn't say anything. In such silence, Iwan thought of what Iwan had said before about the injection, and gradually felt a little uncomfortable. Fortunately, China Mo didn't say anything and just drove. The quiet night became even quieter because of the silence. In the narrow space, there was only Iwan's warm breath. A few minutes later, the car arrived at the hospital. China Mo got out of the car, picked up Iwan, and asked Iwan to help him put on his coat. Then, he walked quickly to the emergency room. The doctor checked and asked a few more questions before scolding. "You must be careful when you bathe. If the water is too cold, of course you will catch a cold. As a parent, you must have common sense." Iwan stood there without saying a word. China Mo, on the other hand, watched as Director He, who is usually awe-inspiring, was now being lectured like a primary school student in front of Doctor. His anger subsided a little, and he asked calmly, "Do you need an injection?" The doctor pushed up his glasses. "Give him a shot to reduce the fever and take some anti-inflammatory drugs. Go back and observe. If he has a high fever, drink some cooling medicine. It's best to lower his body physically." Chin Mo nodded. "Okay." The doctor wrote out the bill. "Pay up, then get the medicine for the injection." Chin Mo carried Iwan while Iwan followed behind him. He was very tall, so Iwan was like a shadow following behind him. Occasionally, she would suddenly think that if it wasn't for Chin Mo, she would definitely be in a difficult situation. Thinking about it this way, she didn't find him so annoying. Chin Mo waited by the side, with Iwan in his arms. Iwan paid the fee, took the medicine, and went to get an injection. During the injection, Iwan stared at the syringe for a long time. When the injection was over, Iwan burst into tears and buried her face in Chin Mo's arms. "Daddy, I don't want an injection. It hurts." Little girls were very cute when they acted coquettishly. Moreover, Chin Mo had always doted on her, so he carried the little baby in one arm and said in a low, husky voice that was very pleasant to the ears, "It'll be fine in a while, just like a mosquito taking a bite." And a chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 4140. Why does a mosquito want to eat me? Iwan cried. "It's so small. Why does it want to eat me?" Wah. Chin Mo had no choice but to coax her patiently. This little girl was always like this after every injection. Iwan stood at the side and looked at the father and daughter. Just now, she thought that she wouldn't be so embarrassed with Chin Mo around. But now, she suddenly felt that she was a little unnecessary. Just like Chin Mo said, she hadn't asked Iwan about it all these years. He had asked her, apart from the fact that she gave birth to Iwan, apart from the fact that Iwan was born from her belly, was Iwan still considered her child? Iwan's eyes were a little hot. Looking at Iwan's young face, there was an indescribable feeling in her heart. She looked at them quietly. After a long time, Chin Mo got up with Iwan in his arms. "Let's go." Iwan came back to her senses. "Are you done?" Iwan said pitifully, "It hurts." She leaned over and let Iwan hug her. Iwan took over and hugged her, but Chin Mo took over and walked downstairs. Iwan followed beside him. "You can go home now." "What else?" "She's hospitalized because of a slight fever." He said simply, "Go home and take care of her." Iwan didn't say anything else. She felt that he was in a bad mood, and she didn't want to touch him. In the car, Chin Mo asked her to take off Iwan's coat and feed Iwan some water. Iwan took a bottle. It was plain water that Chin Mo poured for her. She was a little confused. She's already so big. Why does she still need this? Chin Mo started the car and said calmly, "She's quite persistent about this." The car drove out of the hospital. Outside the car, the night was gentle. Chin Mo's eyes were like ink in such a dark night. He continued to say, "Maybe she hasn't felt the warmth of a mother." Iwan was mocked by him again. She didn't want to talk to him anymore and lowered her head to feed Ihuan water. As expected, Ihuan was very persistent about this. She held it in her arms and drank it. She looked very reluctant to part with it, which made Ihuan feel a little guilty. Ihuan drank the water, bit the bottle, and quickly fell asleep. However, her little face was still burning hot and abnormally red. Ihuan gently caressed her little face and tried to remove the bottle with one hand, but the sleeping little person immediately hugged it tightly and refused to let go. He was very persistent. Ihuan was stunned and felt a little sour in his heart. Qin and Mo didn't say anything. The car drove back to his place. Qin and Mo was still carrying Ihuan, and Ihuan was following behind with her things. When they got home, he carried Ihuan directly to the bed in the master bedroom. He helped Ihuan take off her coat and change into a set of two-piece pajamas. The little girl woke up and rolled around happily when she found that it was her father's bed. It seemed that she used to sleep with Qin and Mo often in the past. Ihuan felt that she was an outsider and a third party again. Qin and Mo bent down and asked gently, "Do you want Daddy to carry you to the bathroom?" She didn't know what Ihuan said, but Qin and Mo carried the little girl and went to the bathroom. After a while, he carried her back and put her on the bed and covered her with a quilt. He looked at Ihuan and said, "Pour a glass of water." Ihuan said yes. When she walked out, there was an indescribable feeling in her heart. It was as if everything they had argued about others had disappeared, and the only thing left in the world was Ihuan's illness. She even felt that it was unreal. She couldn't describe it herself. She poured a glass of water and put it down gently. Qin and Mo glanced at her and then fed Ihuan the medicine. It was natural for a child to be coaxed after taking the medicine, but Qin and Mo didn't show any impatience. End of chapter. Hurry up and read the latest update. Chapter 41:41. After feeding Ihuan the medicine, Qin and Mo held the cup and gently touched the little girl's forehead with the other finger. He felt a little relieved when he felt that the fever had gone down a little. He looked up and saw Ihuan standing there. He smiled faintly. "Don't you want to take a bath?" He had done half of it before, so he felt uncomfortable now. Ihuan misunderstood his meaning. She paused and whispered, "Then I'll sleep in the guest room after I take a bath." Without waiting for him to answer, she went outside. Her wrist was caught. Qin and Mo put down the cup in his hand and rubbed his forehead with one hand. "When did I say that you were going to sleep in the guest room? Ihuan is sleeping here," Ihuan said softly. Qin and Mo looked at the child and also lowered his voice. "Do you think that a husband and wife sleep in the same bed just to make love?" Ihuan didn't say anything. That was what she thought of him in her heart. So, Qin Mo's face became a little ugly. He reached out and dragged her to his side. He looked up at her and said, "Ihuan is sick. Don't you need to take care of her as a mother?" Ihuan's lips moved. "I thought you didn't need it. It doesn't matter whether I need it or not. The important thing is that Ihuan needs it." Qin Mo said very softly, "Ihuan, I can support you when you work. But in this family, you can ignore me, but Ihuan is your child." As he said that, he suddenly dragged her to his side and hugged her tightly, as if he wanted to break her waist. "Ihuan, do you still have any consciousness as a mother? She was born when you were pregnant for 10 months. She is so cute. How can you not care about her?" Qin Mo's voice was a little tense, with patience and restraint. Ihuan was a little surprised. She didn't know that he suddenly became like this. This Qin and Mo looked a little fragile, not as strong as usual. She looked down at his black hair and hesitated. She put her hand on his shoulder. "I don't care about her," Qin and Mo said hoarsely. "If you cared about her, would you sleep in the guest room when she had a high fever?" "Ihuan, what exactly do you want? Do I want a lot? Do Ihuan want a lot? How can you be so heartless?" He leaned his face against her waist, and his voice was extremely hoarse. "How can you be so heartless? How can you be so indifferent? You said you wanted Ihuan after the divorce. How can I be at ease with a mother like you? Tell me, how will you take care of her?" Ihuan was stunned and could not speak for a long time. She could only feel that Qin Mo's heart was beating very fast, and his skin was very hot. She suspected that Yihuan had also infected him with a high fever. Otherwise, why would he be so hot? Yihuan pushed him. Chinamo, let go of me. I'm going to take a shower and stay with her. However, Chinamo did not let go of her. Not only did he not let go, but he hugged her even more tightly. His thin lips kissed her waist and abdomen through her clothes, as if he wanted to confuse her. It was not because of the love jade. When Yihuan was sick, he did not have such thoughts. He was just sure that this despicable woman was still by his side. This despicable woman was still by his side. She did not leave and did not abandon him and Yihuan. She did not. She left 3 days after giving birth to Yihuan. Chinamo was completely obsessed. It was as if he did not care, and only the two of them were left in the world. Chinamo, Yihuan was shocked and put her hand on his shoulder. Be rational. Yihuan is sick. Bookmark for easier reading. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.